Yes, hello and welcome to the Daily Roto Premium NBA Show. This is the Tuesday, April 6th edition. Andrew Barron here, Christopher Pacheco here. 8-game slate of National Basketball Association games that are available for your DFS contest this evening. Pacheco!
What's up?
How you doing, man? Not much.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. The 130 injury report really didn't do much for us, which, it's one of those things where listen, man, I'll take as much chaos as possible at night, but every man has its limits.
You get like an idea of what's going to happen now, and then when the surprises happen later, whatever. Yeah, it's not ideal.
No, yeah, the 130s are just. I'm gonna be honest with you. The 130s are just not going to be helpful in general moving forward here. Teams aren't even. Feels like teams aren't even listing what they're going to do on the 130, and they're going to do it at 530 or beyond that. Like yesterday, did you see the Wolves situation where the guards were all doubtful, and the only one that got ruled out was Beasley, and Dar was actually ruled out on the 130, and then he was in along with Rubio in the actual 530. So. I don't know, man. It's a little bit tough these days to get much out of the 130, but at least we know Van Vliet's going to be out tonight for Toronto. So we knew that.
That's a team on a back-to-back, which usually those are the worst ones. We only have two teams on back-to-backs tonight, and usually that's where you really get screwed on a 130 injury report. But no, everyone's just being withholding from us anyway. I don't know. Last night did seem like I didn't get to play. I had a doctor's appointment after, so I just played baseball. After the show, because you can make baseball lineups in like 20 minutes and not really worry about them. It's great. It's like, oh wow, I forgot how nice this is. But it did seem like looking over the slate, like things went as apprehensive as I was personally about like even playing that slate. The pivots that we were talking about did largely work out. Like there were some really good ones where it was it was a lot of like. Yeah, that Knicks-Nets game is getting low on because it's the Knicks, but play one of Kyrie or Harden and have Julius Randle in there to help you out, and that definitely worked. It was because Harden got hurt, but hey, listen, that's in the range of outcomes. You need weird stuff to happen for you to win tournaments, and I imagine Kyrie and Randle were a tournament-winning combination last night. There were a couple others that I don't remember off the top of my head, but it did seem like overall. That was for a slate with a scarily low potential for chaos. It felt like the right chaos sort of happened. So that was nice to see. Well, chaos tonight, the big one to talk about first is Hawks and Pels. They're both on the front end of a back-to-back. The Hawks we do know all right, and I think they have a lot of very compelling plays this evening. But the Pels, well, we know that Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Josh Hart and Kyra Lewis will not be playing, but the other two guys, both Q. Talk to me. What do you think here?
So Kyra Lewis is doubtful, which typically that should mean they're not playing, but we've now seen some doubtfuls here that are able to give it a go. So we'll continue to monitor that one because I think that might be that could open up Isaiah Thomas for the Pels if he doesn't play, and that's essentially what we're projecting. We're not projecting Kyra Lewis in because he's doubtful, and we're projecting a role for Isaiah Thomas. But yeah, you mentioned Zion and Brandon Ingram being big Qs. They certainly are. It would open up James Johnson if those guys were out. We saw Jackson Hayes get the start at the 4 last game. I don't know about this matchup in terms of him being able to start here at the 4. So that one's a little bit tricky. But if we get all these guys in, Andrew, on the Pelican side, it's kind of tough. Everyone's priced really appropriately, including Zion and Brandon Ingram, missing some games here of late, but it's not really baked into their price at all. And Zion, by the way, is near 10K on FanDuel because, as you recall, he was going off before the injury. So my hot take on the Pelicans, frankly, is if all these guys play, I'm not really interested.
I think that's reasonable. I mean, Ingram stands out a little bit as someone you could play. Like, someone's going to have to carry the workload. And, like, yeah, I guess it's probably ends up being Zion still. And that 10K is just brutally difficult to pay off with the low stock rates. You know, he's had a few games where they really went up, but I don't see him. It's going to be difficult. You know, like, whatever, we talked about it. He's done it a couple times, but it's very difficult for a guy like that to throw in the 60 burgers. It's only going to happen like when he has the ceiling offensive game, you know, the 1 in 10 outcome or something. But even given the 1 in 10, you know, points, assists, rebounds outcome, he also needs at least a 1 in 3 steals and blocks outcome, right? Because it's about one. He averages, you know, 1.5, almost 2 a game, and he needs 3 really to get himself into the conversation on top of all of that other stuff to get into like nuke level. So not only do you need like it just makes it really, really difficult for him to get his ceiling, and people love playing him. He's been really good. I think he's, as much as I was trying to get on him for, you know, several weeks because I thought the field was lagging, I don't think that's really going to be the case now. So a little, I hear you though. And yeah, if they're all out, like what you said about Jackson Hayes is quite pertinent. It's one thing to do that against the Rockets. I don't think you can get away with that against the Hawks. Also, because the Hawks are going to have a lot of Gallinari at the 4, so that's more of a shooting threat. He'll even play some 5. Like Hayes is not going to be able to do anything there, and Adams is not like a center that can roam out and help. So I'm with you. I think that will be tough for them.
I think we could see. So if we don't see Hayes in the starting lineup, we probably see like Sami Wundu or Najee Marshall. That was the other forward that they started there at the 4, and I mean, I think that's another possibility. I think it's one of those guys over Hayes tonight. Given the matchup.
I think so too. Well, the matchup is against the Hawks, as mentioned. John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish will all be out, so that's 3 of their usual 5 starters. So we got some plays here. Talk to me about the Hawks side of the ball.
Yeah, we do. Bogdanovich has been awesome, playing 30-plus, big, you know, pretty good rates for him. And it's just one of those guys that if the shot is falling, it's, you know, the ceiling is certainly there, even at 6,200 on DraftKings. 7,200 on FanDuel is certainly a little bit tougher for him to pay it off as a guy that is not going to generate a bunch of stocks either. So that one's a little bit tricky over on FanDuel. But you do have to like Clint Capella at the spot. But my goodness, he's almost 10K on FanDuel. That's tough, but he's 8,600 on DraftKings, and no John Collins is just a really big deal for his minutes. It's one less guy that can threaten his center minutes, especially on the closing side of things.
Yep.
And so, you know, there's a reason why he's playing pretty routinely 30-plus without John Collins in the lineup. So I think he's safer, and I think we've seen it, Andrew. His upside, especially on the stocks department, it's been insane this season.
No, I think so, man. It's pretty wild. Gallinari is a tough one because of his peripherals are pretty bad, so you will need him to score a lot of real points. He's generally been like a not so hot rebounder in his career. You know, it's gone up since he's played more of the 4. You know, he was in the 13% pretty much every year in his first, you know, in his Denver years and New York years. And then he's up to 16, 17 the last 3 years. And this season it is 18, 19 without Collins. So, you know, I think there's definitely some rebound chances to like help him out. And we've seen it, right? He has put together pretty full lines a couple times this year, despite being a guy who really doesn't block shots or get steals, just because he's not athletic enough to. So I like Gallinari quite a bit tonight. Pell's defense is wretched and gives up a million open threes and all of that stuff. So one.
You typically like Trey. His minutes have been not so great lately. He didn't even close last game in a game that was competitive. He had a million turnovers, wasn't shooting well. Yeah. You have any thoughts there? Like him tonight?
Yeah, he's good play. I mean, it's him instead. Like the other thing is point guard is pretty bereft. There's, you know, you've got Dame up there too, but he is. Why is his optimal so much lower? That is interesting. Possibly a Clippers matchup. Is there a low total there? We have a good minutes side on him, but
we got a 112 total. Maybe is it CJ back?
That's a little low. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, Trey and Steph both have like 3% higher usage rates. And Trey's got a higher assist rate. Curry's a little bit lower, but yeah, and we're projecting Dame to be like a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy, with Trey at 1.3 and Steph at 1.35. But those are your three premier guys to play at point guard tonight. So yeah, Trey in this matchup is great. Like it's his price tag's all the way down to 8,500. Like it's built in for him to struggle a little bit now. The trouble, as pointed out, I forget who said that, but you mentioned that on the show about Trey's, the big turnovers without a ton of steals and blocks does make it tough. If he has a 7 turnover game, it's not pretty, but like he doesn't always have those. So I think that he's set up to succeed. If 8,500 against a bad defense and the guy has the ball all the time.
I mean, he's not going to run into 7 turnover games every time, obviously, but would you at least agree that there's a reason why Trey has been priced in the 8s more consistently nowadays rather than 9s and 10s where Curry and Lillard have been? He hasn't been the same guy as those guys this season. You'd have to at least admit that.
No, absolutely. It's very true. Those guys have been really, just ungodly efficient. He hasn't quite been there, and he's had a lot more turnovers. And I don't think, he still has incredible fouls. What percentage of a player's shot attempts was he fouled on? It's still 90th percentile, but he was like leading the league earlier in the year. So I think he may be having some trouble with the refs too, because he is just a master of that. Like, the Chris Paul thing where you get in front of the guy, get the momentum, and then you stop like pretending to go up for a shot and they run into you and it's a foul on them.
He's really good at that.
He's really good at that. And I don't think he was getting like 6. Remember, it was like a story in the first 2-3 weeks of the season because he was getting to the line 14, 15, 16 times a game. I have a feeling that, considering his numbers are not quite that insanely, sense that the refs are probably onto him a little bit and not giving him the benefit of that call as much, which induces more downside. But yeah, he's also a grand 15. He was over 10 at points this season. So it's a nice price tag against a bad defense.
It's actually going to blow your mind here before we move away to the next game. And I know it was kind of a different setup of a team last season. Obviously, another coach, like things were different. But Trey last year got to 60-plus drafting points 38% of the time. That seems quite high. This season, Andrew, he's down to 6%. He's only really achieved it in a couple games this year.
Yeah, that's brutal, dude. No shit. Yeah. Well, that's why the Sims were obsessed with him to start the year.
For sure.
Because that is what's in there. It's a big part is the standard deviation over the last 40 or so games. So and mostly this season now, which is why his optimal probability is dropped, but also like it's the price has too. But that is why at the beginning of the season, I just couldn't stop talking about him because the Sims were all about him because, wow, he scored 60 DraftKings points in 40% of his games last year. That seems good.
Yeah, that's insane. And also probably wasn't going to stand with his inefficiency.
Well, he's an efficient shooter. I'm going to have to dive into that and see what is different because that's wild to me.
I mean, he's efficient in certain aspects, but let's see. He's shot 35% from 3 from his career, which I'm not saying it's bad at all, right?
Well, remember he was shooting 25% from 3 for the first like half of his first season, and it was like this isn't possible.
Sure. I'm just saying that just looking at his career total, it's at 347, so just shy of 35%. Obviously, a phenomenal free throw shooter. That's never been a weakness. He's not but he's obviously not a Steph Curry levels, which that belongs to him, right?
Sure. Yeah.
No one should be in that tier, but Trey isn't quite there, and any sort of regression there, I think it has certainly cost him on the upside. But the good thing now is on FanDuel at 8,500, it's not that you need 60. If he can just get you into the 50s at 8,500, you're kind of in business.
Totally. Yeah, was another person we were talking about. Oh, it was De'Aaron Fox against Russell Westbrook. That was exactly what it was, right? It was like, oh, that's really tough because blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But if De'Aaron Fox gets into the mid-50s and Russ only scores 60, 65, then the price difference is significant enough that you're in business, and that's exactly what happened. I knew there was another big one, but yeah, looking at this, his efficiency is offensively is almost identical to last year. He plays 1 minute less a game, which is probably a problem. And the turnovers are the same. It's blowing my mind. We don't have time for me to deep dive on Trae Young, but I promise to do that before our next show, our next Hawks game show, because that is pretty wild to me. But he's not like his mid-range game is really good too when he gets fouled a lot. So that's why he is overall his offensive efficiency is 80th percentile, even for a point guard who generally have, who will have pretty decent. He's not Damian Lillard, but it's really good. It's like a 118 offensive rating if he was to shoot every shot for a team, and the league average is 112. So very good offensive player still. Well, that's weird. Bummer for Trae. Okay. Let's see. What is another big one here? We've got let's hit Portland and the Clippers. Speaking of efficient point guards, we've got possibly the return of Patrick Beverley, and then we've also got no Nurkic for Portland. So some pretty significant injuries there. What do you see happening for the Clips? We have Beverly projected in. How does this shake out their guard rotation to you? Is Rondo or Reggie Jackson going to get coffined? Like, what's the deal here?
Well, Reggie, because the belief is that Beverly probably just enters the starting five, and Reggie's been the guy that's been in that position. So Reggie, gets coffined a bit. He was somewhat valuable before, especially in games where Kawhi was missing or Paul George and stuff, but it's over. Terrence Mann is going to take a hit. Luke Kennard, is not going to play a million minutes like he was before. So those guys are going to take a step back, but obviously that has nothing to do with Kawhi and Paul George. Those guys are going to be awesome, essentially regardless. I guess the one thing to note is that George's minutes have been a little bit down recently, and he did return from this foot thing that hasn't essentially been bothering him all season, and I think he has even said it himself, like he's going to have to play through it, type of thing. So to me, that scares me on the minute ceiling, not necessarily on the median, but I guess I should be a little bit scared on the median if now it's going to be like 32, 33, right, instead of 34, 35, which is where we have him. That is a big enough difference for his fantasy projection.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a little tricky with him. Yeah, 31 and a half the last two games, but I don't know. He's got a nice price tag. That's the thing, I guess, with Paul George is it seemed like he's been underpriced all year.
Yeah.
But then he has a lot of games where he doesn't quite get there on the minutes, so he's not putting up the just like absolutely monster game, and it's been.
Or he's had like horrible shooting nights. In times where like Kawhi was out, remember those? Like his rates were incredible, and then he just shot ridiculously bad and couldn't get it done. So
right, I wonder what his on-off with Kawhi is, because his efficiency on the year is phenomenal. Like he's had a ridiculous shooting season, but you're right. There's been a couple notable stinkers in there. Yeah, he's shooting 43% from three this year.
Yeah, that's wow. That's incredible. I remember, some of those matchups where we wanted to hammer him, and it was just like, wow, he shot how many times and made how many shots? Like, it just makes no sense. And notably, in that game that he came back against Denver, that was a huge game. I remember that was the night. Remember, he was out, then got promoted to Q throughout the day, and then ended up playing that night. And maybe it was a lot to ask out of him to play big minutes that game. It was a big game against Denver, and he only played those 31 and a half, and then follow it up with the same total next game. So all that to say that there is some room for error there. We could very well be wrong on his medium minutes right now, and if we are, that projection is certainly going to take a hit. But he's 8,100 on DraftKings, which is a pretty good price tag. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. Not too bad on FanDuel either. They've had their schedule lately. It's not that easy. Yeah. They have, they played, they beat Milwaukee. They lost to Denver, beat San Antonio twice, beat the Hawks. Whatever. Nothing crazy. But their defense is like no joke again. That's more what I was looking at to check out what's going on recently. If they've just been playing a bunch of terrible offenses, because I have been talking a lot this year about how their defense has the tools to be absolutely incredible, and they were just pretty bad all year, and I think a lot of it was effort. But yeah, they were really turning the screws on. Last 2 weeks, they are second in defensive efficiency behind Utah, so it's a 104.1. They're down to 112.1 on the season, so they're up to 12th overall. They were like 20th for a long time. They were not, they just weren't trying on defense, I don't think. So that does make it, that 112 total is real low for Portland, who is basically the best offense, They're definitely a top 5 offense, and they're a really fun team because they are incredible at offense, top 5 offense, bottom 5 defense. So, like, in theory, this game should be fun. It's just, are you worried that the Clippers are hitting a different gear now, and it's just like they are going to be a not fun fantasy team? Because if they really start playing defense hard, that's what's going to happen. They're not going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, it could be a thing, and they're probably gearing up for the playoffs, right? Some of these teams are certainly playing for seeding in the Western Conference and trying to make some noise there. And the Clippers are absolutely one of those teams. How long that happens remains to be seen, right? Because they're probably going to get some of these key guys some rest before the season's over. I don't know when it's going to happen, but they've been really weird throughout parts of the season, and that is going to happen again. But for the foreseeable future, I don't think so. I think they're trying to get ready for the playoffs. One of the things, Andrew, especially gearing up for the playoffs, is just like I think this team got burned last year from lack of continuity, especially on offense. When you have so many guys missing games, and then you try to hit that next year in the playoffs, it almost feels impossible. And to their credit, they almost did it, right? They almost did it. They almost got to the Western Conference Finals and faced the Lakers, and then they just kind of, fell flat on their face. And this year, they really should try to avoid that and play if healthy, they should try to play their main guys as much as possible to gear up for the playoffs. So that's what I think is going to happen for at least the next couple of weeks, and then we'll probably see them rested. As it comes to Portland tonight, you still can't ignore someone like CJ on FanDuel is 7,900. I think that's a great tag, and really like him as a play. I know the Clippers are going to be really stingy on defense. They are, but you can't ignore everyone on the Portland side. Their offense is too good. These guards could just go off on any night. So I don't think it's an ignore spot for them.
No, I don't think so either. And I think Cantor should get some ownership. I think that will happen because there's no Nurkic. He's, a reasonable price tag. It hasn't come like way down to backup center level, but he's okay. And, there's Zubac out there, so people will play that. I think a big beneficiary here, though, is Carmelo because he's the one that's kind of gotten killed the most for fantasy with the return of Nurkic because he's not playing backup center now. He's their backup center again, and he's been really good some games in that, and he can score a lot of points. He gets a few more rebounds at center, blah, blah, blah. But, the minutes upside is higher when there's no Nurkic for Carmelo. And he's down to he's a $4,700 small forward on FanDuel. I like Carmelo quite a bit tonight.
That's worth playing, even though it's showing as a negative value because we're not baking in the potential for if he gets hot playing 28, 29 or 30. Yep. So I don't mind that at all.
If the Clippers decide to close small,
he'll be out there.
Then he'll be out there because they can't play. If the Clippers decide to close without Zubac, it's kind of up to the Clippers, basically. Mm-hmm. If they take Zubac off the floor, then Cantor cannot be out there, essentially.
Or he can, but it's going
to be ugly.
They're just going to get murdered.
Not that Carmelo's like a panacea for your defense at center. It's not like he's the anchor holding it down. No. But he can at least move around and kind of pretend to hang out with wings, and Cantor just can't. He just can't do anything in space, which I guess there's shame in that, but not but
not gonna kill the guy for it. But most centers are in that spot, right? Most centers
exactly. Most traditional centers, most guys that big, absolutely. Okay, let's see here. Philly and Boston. We've got a front end. Boston is on the front end of a back-to-back. This is a national television game, so everybody that can play will play, but a guy that can't play is Evan Fournier because he is back in health and safety protocols. What's that do for you for Boston? I mean, Marcus Smart's popping a little bit, but I don't think like the prices have come down enough for all of them together for there to be like screaming value to me. How about you?
I agree. I also agree with that. I've been staying away from I certainly won't play Tatum and Brown together. I won't do that. But when the price tags are also elevated, like especially on Tatum, 9K around the industry, I don't like it. I certainly don't like it. Philadelphia is also not a cake matchup whatsoever.
No, sir.
Could Tatum do the 50 thing? He could. 60 with JB and Kemba out there, that's going to be really, really tough for Tatum. But I mean, if he gives you 50, it's still nice. But I'm saying that it's going to be tough.
And presumably he'll get more Simmons, who is a real lockdown defender guy. Philly doesn't switch a lot because they've got the big, like that's not really the way they play. And they don't have a ton, like Danny Green can still give Jaylen Brown some trouble, but Jaylen Brown does have the easier matchup, I think. Yeah.
I mean, listen, if the price tag was down a little bit, it's what you're saying. If it was discounted just a touch, then I'd kind of be in. Maybe if he was in the 8s, 80, 82, 8,300. But 9K is a lot to ask in this spot. JB is a real safe guy, but same thing. I struggle with the 50, 60 with Tatum out there. It's going to be tough. But I think he's fine. At the price tag he's at, he's fine. Kemba, fine. Smart on FanDuel is quite interesting because he's 5,500. And the potential for, 35, 36 minutes is there. Stocks, upside is certainly there. I'm interested in him, and I'm interested in Robert Williams a good bit. Tough spot because Embiid could be a nightmare from drawing fouls.
The fouls, yeah.
But I still like the price tags on Rob. 50, 60 burger, if he stays on the floor, is still achievable.
I'm with you. I think Rob's the play in Boston. Don't hate Jaylen Brown. The other thing that Philly could do is if Jaylen Brown does have it going, they can put Thibault out there, who's an unbelievable defensive player and is actually like a really good on-ball defender now, which he had not been earlier. And obviously the stocks, he's just all over the place with the octopus arms, but like he's actually just like killing dudes one-on-one now too. Most teams would not be able to play Matisse Thybulle. They don't have the luxury of playing someone that bad offensively. Philly's not really that kind of team because they can play the old school offense where it's just like, okay, just give it to Embiid, and like
pretty much.
Yeah, they can double team him, and they will, but it's still tough. And yeah, it really sucks if you get double teamed and you've got Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle, and Danny Green, who whatever he's been a good shooter in his career. We've seen him brick a lot. But remember when he almost won the Finals MVP for the Spurs because he went 15 of 22 from 3 in the first couple games, he's been really good. Danny Green, I feel bad for. He's been a really good player in his career and has been high profile-y, not a good shooter lately. But my point being more they could additionally put Thybulle out there, which is not going to be a good idea for most teams if Jaylen Brown decides to go off. The big thing on Philly is, will you talk me out of absolutely jamming Embiid? He's 5% on both sides.
Oh, I can talk you out of that one pretty easily in terms of the minutes. I worry that they're going to be careful with this guy moving forward, because remember the way Philadelphia is situated right now from a playoff perspective is they're pretty much kind of chilling right on the top 2 spots, with Brooklyn probably taking the first spot. Especially when they're going to get healthy here, they should run away with the first spot. But Philly's right there. I mean, Philly's right there. And so, do they push Embiid, especially with the injury scare that he just got recently? That is the one concern here, that he's not going to play 34 to 36 moving forward and is more going to play 30 to 32. With that said, you could still get a great game out of Joel Embiid, but he's priced pretty appropriately for the minutes that I'm talking about, 30 to 32. Boston, though, it's tough because Robert Williams isn't the guy to stop him either. It's not that Robert Williams is a bad defender, and my goodness, there's just not many people that can stop Embiid anyways. But that's not the matchup for him either. So
they don't have Enes Kanter, their Embiid stopper anymore.
No, they don't. They don't have a guy. We talked about Giannis as well in terms of Boston just doesn't have guys for him, and Smart, to his credit, was able to keep him from not being as efficient. But they really don't have anyone for Embiid. So that's a clear positive it's a clear positive for him if he can just play 32 minutes.
Absolutely. That's what I'm thinking. You need him to play 33-ish, 34, but I think the 70 burger is absolutely in play. They don't have a guy. It was even nicer for him actually with Tice. He owned Daniel Tice.
He did.
That was bad.
But Robert Williams
no, Tice is fine. It's Tice weighs 230. It's that's hard when there aren't he is a very good defensive center against a modern NBA lineup. We've talked about this a million times this year. There are very few traditional post-up bigs in the league, but there's 3 of them. Tice is not beefy enough to guard those guys. So Embiid can do whatever he wants. I mean, Rob Williams is not strong enough to, he's kind of a beanpole. He's very long. I like him too, just because of all that stock upside. But yeah, it's if you get Rob into foul trouble, which he easily could.
He could.
Grant Williams and Marcus Smart double teams is probably what you're seeing a lot of. And I don't know that scares you either.
Gross. No, that's gross. It's certainly a tough spot for Boston. It's a big reason why they're not even favored at home against this team.
Also they suck.
Yeah, they're just not as good. They're just not as good as Philly, so they're not going to even be favored at home here. But I'll tell you what, outside of Embiid, Ben Simmons is a guy that just disappeared. I don't know what happened to him. Mm-hmm. He's gone. The rates for him are just awful lately. Last 2 games without Embiid, I don't even know if he's been out there from a rates perspective. And then games before that without Embiid, his rates really didn't take off either. So I'm concerned, and I'd look for a price discount there. You're not going to get it on DraftKings, so I am out on that. If he happens to burn me tonight, okay, okay. But 7,400 on FanDuel is where you can play him. But the rates are a concern. Everything's down. Everything's going to be down with Embiid back in. Embiid just soaks up everything. So some concern there for Simmons for sure.
Right, and then Tobias is the secondary offensive option, and then Simmons has a tough task defensively. So, not that he's in incredible shape, obviously, but he can take it easy a little. He may want to take it easy a little bit on offense because he's got to put so much work in this game into following up Jason Tatum. And then, Embiid is just the guy. It's different. He doesn't play well with others at all, but he's an awesome fantasy player, and he's 2% on FanDuel tonight. So.
And Simmons also won't shoot. He also won't shoot threes either. So it's not it's not like the Embiid and Seth Curry thing or Danny Green thing that he has going with those shooters, where you could throw it to him in the post and then he'll kick it out. Can't even do that with Simmons. Mm-mm. So I think that's one of the reasons why his usage rate hurts when he's back. He can't even stretch the floor.
Right, and Simmons needs Danny Green to hit threes, which he doesn't do.
A problem
to get those assists. Yeah, it's a problem. And Boston, decent rim protection team. Jason Tatum, Rob Williams, those are really good, really long help defenders. That's potentially an issue for Simmons getting to the rim. So we shall see. I'm with you. I don't really care for Simmons, but it's Embiid Embiid is by far my favorite play in this game. And listen, it's not super high likely to work. It's just you're getting 2% own Joel Embiid. It's really as simple as that.
Damn,
it's I wrote the baseball. Yeah, on FanDuel, he's 7% on DK because you can play multiple centers. But I wrote the Sims article for FanDuel for DraftKings for baseball today, and it was basically the thesis was, lol, the Dodgers are 1% owned. Lol, what? I get it. There's a lot of aces on the board. There's teams with higher totals. There's a Coors game, but the Dodgers are by far the best offense in baseball. So they're 1% owned. Just play him. It's Joel Embiid. He's 2% owned. Play him. play some at least. It's not hard to get over the field on that. So, all right, Chicago and Indiana. This is actually not a terrible fantasy game, even though this is like an absolutely pulling teeth game to watch. But we've got let's see here. Indiana is on the front end of a back-to-back, and they've got Brogdon, Sabonis, and Lamb, all questionable. So there's my setup for you, bud. Good luck.
Yikes. Well, I certainly completely it's not that I disregarded it, but I didn't see that it was the front end of back-to-back for them. I just didn't think they were playing it tomorrow. Didn't see it on the schedule.
Okay, I could be wrong. Listen,
no.
You are considerably more fastidious about NBA scheduling than I am.
No, but I think I just missed. I missed the Indiana thing,
cool.
Which that's tough because Sabonis, by the way, hasn't really practiced. He didn't practice on Sunday, and then they didn't really give us anything from yesterday. So I don't know, what his real status here is. Teams typically like for the guy to practice with them once and then, throw him out there into the fire. But obviously Sabonis and Brogdon are a little bit different. It's not that they need the practice time. They could just go out there tonight and play. But front and back to back, that kind of scares me a little bit. The line though is Bulls by 1 at Indy, so it's kind of telling me that someone's going to sit here. I don't think the Bulls should be favored in this spot if everyone was healthy. I could be wrong, but that one doesn't strike me as the Bulls should be favored on the road against this team. So here's a good thing. We know what's going to happen if dudes miss. So if Brogdon misses, Edmund Sumner has been starting, and then TJ McConnell's been the one that's been playing, anywhere from 28 to 31 minutes without him off the bench. So TJ is the guy that gets the biggest boost in that scenario, and also Karis LeVert gets a pretty good boost on assist rate. The best thing for LeVert is when Brogdon and Sabonis are out, and that's when his projection, was a little bit crazier last time out because I said, hey, I think his rates are going to return back to kind of what they were in Brooklyn without the big guys in there, and that's what happened. He had like a 30% plus usage, 33% assist rate. So I think LeVert is another dude that could just go bananas on the rates, but he would need Sabonis and Brogdon both to miss. Sabonis misses, it's a plus for Miles Turner, and it's also a plus for Doug McDermott, who would start in his place. But in terms of guys that would rate well from just a pure opportunity standpoint, would certainly be LeVert. McConnell, if he doesn't have Brogdon in there, would certainly rate pretty well, even at those price tags.
No, I think so too. That is interesting as far as they are concerned. TJ would be a cool, like Chicago. It's weird. Chicago is a pretty bad turnover team thus far this year, but they added Vooch, and Vooch never turns the ball over. So I don't think it's going to be quite as easy, but TJ will be obviously on the perimeter. It's not like not that you're worried about that anyway, but it's not like he's guarding Vooch one-on-one, but listen, he's getting in passing lanes. That's how he gets so many steals. So the TJ McConnell thing, it's I like to play him if he's got an opportunity for that, because that dude gets, I mean, we literally saw him triple-double with steals, but he has 5 steal upside in like a 90th percentile outcome, not like a career game outcome, right. He can do that often. And Chicago does turn the ball over a fair amount. So it probably will be a little worse with Vooch, but kind of into him. I'm with you there. I think Thad Young has real minutes upside here if Sabonis plays, because he's the guy that they need. Yeah. They're kind of screwed guarding Sabonis otherwise, I think. I mean, Vooch is probably actually not terrible at it because he's as strong as Sabonis is. And that's really all you need. It's not like Sabonis is blowing by you with athleticism, which is usually where Vooch gets in trouble. But I do think Thad could really play a lot of minutes, and Sabonis turns the ball over a ton too. So that's easy. That's interesting. Thad, I'm talking about that because Thad also is another legendary steals guy. Thad and TJ McConnell, 2 of the best steals dudes in the world, both in the same game. So I think he has some upside here. Anyone else you like on Chicago, or you want to talk me out of some Thad?
No, I'm not talking you out of that one because I think it's very real tonight. They don't have Daniel Tice in this one. I don't know if you mentioned that to open that up, but they don't have him tonight.
I did not, but thank you.
So that is one less dude. They've been playing him. He's been out there. He's been playing 20+ minutes here for Chicago lately. So that is just great, right? For that, for maybe even a little bit for Vooch. Lauri Markkanen is a guy that's projecting for mid-20s now. And with Tice in there, he was projecting in the low 20s. But this doesn't strike me as a Lauri spot. It strikes me as a Thad spot against Sabonis. Certainly, that's a thing tonight. We saw Thad play, 32.5 and 28.5 in 2 of his last 3 games. Last game, he only played 21 in a game where Tice played. So I do like that in this spot. I think, Zach is a guy at 7,200 on FanDuel. Listen, I know it hasn't been great lately, but I was like the worst, advocate for him in terms of when he was 9+. No interest.
Right.
Burned me a couple
times.
We
flipped. Now I'm not. It's 7,200. Get him away from me.
But that's the thing. Now it's like he hasn't had like great games lately. Do you think there's a chance that the peon is a little bit inflated because it's understanding that his price tag is too low now?
Maybe you might get some game log watchers, but I don't think a ton.
Yeah, because if he's going to be massive chalk too, like okay, I'm not that interested.
Right.
But if
he's easy to dodge as chalk,
he is. So if he's closer to his optimal percentage in terms of ownership, I'm interested. But if he's going to be chalk, then no. Even at these price tags, like I'm essentially out. So that one's kind of interesting if you believe that his ownership could be a little bit inflated on our stuff. Vooch is okay. I would certainly rather play Embiid tonight. Capella probably as well, even though he's near 10K on FanDuel. But I think I prefer those guys over him tonight.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Here.
Like Vooch is okay. It's just like he's having his rates also, by the way, have taken a little bit of a nosedive here.
Yeah, exactly. Vooch and Levine are not a very good fit. They're fine offensively. It's not great defensively, and I just don't know what your plan is there, other than to be like the 7th seed a bunch of years in a row. Like they're probably just as good as like their upside here is becoming like as good as Indiana, which I don't know. Maybe that's what Chicago wants. It's because it's been so long, but they gave away a lot for a guy who has not ever been a contributor to a winning team. I mean, I think Vucevic is a good player, but it's just like, damn, it's just he's not getting.
That is not fair. That is not fair to the guy, man. He was in Orlando. Last year he had a really nice series against Milwaukee. Granted, he was like the only guy they really had, but the dude can stretch the floor really well for a center. He's an impact player, man. He's an impact
I just don't
player.
think at the high. I think that's kind of true. I don't think that's true at the highest levels. I think if he was even on a really good team, they're maxing out at like they're like a 3 seed, a 4 seed. If they run good, they get to the conference finals kind of thing. Sort of like what Denver did last year. And Jokic is a way better version of that.
Yeah. You're right on that. You're right on that.
It's so difficult. Like, just look through. Listen, and I think it could potentially be changing because offense is so nuts. Like, it's conceivable. And listen, Denver looks amazing right now. So I may have to eat my words, but I doubt it. But just look through NBA history. Like, there is never – teams do not win the title without, like, phenomenal defensive centers. It's just – that's the one position you have to have. You can hide Trae Young and still have a good defense. You cannot hide Nikola Jokic and still have a good defense. So there's going to have to be ungodly offensively. But when you get to the playoffs, ungodly offensively becomes harder and harder to do, right? The opposing coaches start to know what you're doing. They have kind of everything figured out. And listen, Denver is, like, with Gordon, I mean, let's talk about them next. We'll just get right into that game. But their offense just looks phenomenal now. They can do everything. They can really do everything. Tonight they are playing against Detroit, who really stinks. Jamal Murray is questionable. Denver's on the front end of a back-to-back. Detroit's on the back end of a back-to-back. But okay, take with me about the about what you've seen from Denver the last week or two.
They look like a team that can do the thing in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They look, they have been looking that way. Seems like Aaron Gordon has fit like a glove, and I don't know, man. Jokic is just so good, dude. That it seems like no matter who's out there, he really makes them fit. But Aaron Gordon is another, player that was just dead in Orlando. Showed some signs of life at times, but can we just admit that Orlando's the problem and not the players sometimes? Like Aaron Gordon's a player.
Yeah, he's a player. No, I think it's interesting. It's just holy shit. Okay, sorry. They played 174 possessions together and are plus 32.7 per 100 possessions. 135 offensive rating and a probably pretty bad defensive rating.
Yeah,
102. I'm sure they're getting some nice shooting luck there, but yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it is. Certainly is. This team's going to be really nice again for sure. As it pertains to tonight, though, big question mark on Jamal Murray. They don't need him. Look, they just don't need him tonight. And the front and the back-to-back thing, it's already scary, right? In a game where they're at home playing a horrible team. So Murray definitely could get rested in this one. Monte Morris would be my guess as to the guy that goes in there as a point guard, but obviously with the caveat that it's Jokic, who's the real guard, real point guard there of the offense. Morris's rates just kind of disappear when he starts, but he's really, really cheap on FanDuel, 3,800. And a likelihood of him playing 27, 28 minutes at the very least without Jamal Murray tonight is a thing. They do have PJ Dozier and they do have Campazzo. And this game is probably going to blow out even if Murray can't give it a go. So I'm not saying I project 30 plus for Morris, but he'd be in the high 20s at the very least for us, and he's cheap. So I think that's interesting. But Andrew, I think the blowout risk here is just the thing that you're worried about. It's almost like Denver has to play down to their competition for this game to be close. And if that's the case, okay, it can be close. But if not, this game's going to be over quick.
Yeah, I think you're right. Michael Porter Jr. has been unreal. He's an unreal offensive player. We talked about that a fair amount. Shooting 45% from three on the year, by the way, on high volume, 212 shot attempts, 95 for 212. That is quite good. But he is a very good shooter. He's a very good finisher. His offensive game is nuts. He's really good at that. He got clowned on real bad on defense last year, and for good reason. He just didn't know what he was doing. It was this is not it's not watching Enes Kanter get screwed because he can't move. It was no, this guy just does not know what the play even is. It was just a complete lack of awareness. He's not crazy athletic, but he can move, and he has been okay. His defense has gotten better. That guy is a real player. And if it was the injury stuff that dropped him so low, but he's been better than you think on defense this year. And my God, he's so good offensively. And I think the arrival of Aaron Gordon helps him too, because then you've got another guy who can guard more of your bigger wings versus that Porter used to get stuck with that because Millsap wasn't fast enough to do it anymore. Even though Millsap is still a really good defensive player. Gordon is going to be the sort of primary guy that chases around LeBron and Kawhi and all of those dudes, and that's going to help Porter quite a bit. He's good. Yeah, they're good.
If he takes another step here, right, he has, that's what makes a contending team kind of get over to the next level. And if PJ's doing this, it's good, really good for them. Really good for them.
And maybe they just become a team that puts up a 120 offensive rating and just beats teams that way. I mean, I think that's conceivable. Yeah, sure. They're never going to be a really good defense, but because of Jokic, but they could be, if they can be like Brooklyn, basically, can they be the 16th to 20, the 20th best defense and the best offense? That's their title chance. So
agreed.
We shall see. But man, they look good. Do you care about Detroit? Anyone worth playing there?
Wow. Did you know I'm projecting minutes for 13 guys there tonight? I don't know if you dug in that deep, but they are projecting for 13 guys tonight in their rotation, and it's horrible. It's a nightmare.
Is there a chance that some of those are hedgy? Then that you're like, okay, well, these 3 guys kind of play the same 2 positions. Are there any of those 13 guys that you think have minutes upside for up to, say, 8 more minutes than you're projecting them for?
Jesus Christ. Josh Jackson has 5 more minutes into his upside, and Killian Hayes might have 5 because we saw him play 25 yesterday. And maybe there's 8 if he's, if they're ready to just kind of run him out there for more. But the coach had mentioned, something about his conditioning, and it's like another back-to-back in Denver. I don't know if
that was a lottery pick.
I know. But he's splitting minutes with Corey Joseph and Saban Lee, and you can't play anyone on Detroit outside of Jeremy Grant on FanDuel because he's cheap, and I don't have anything else for you. I know people are going to make the revenge thing a thing here, but here's what you're not accounting for. If this game is over by halftime, Grant's going to play 24 minutes. So this is really tough. No interest in Detroit for me outside of Grant, Josh Jackson on FanDuel. I'll give you that one.
Yeah, I think Josh Jackson's the play. He's 4,400 at shooting guard. It's going to get some ownership because that's so cheap. But yeah, the dude puts up dude takes a lot of shots. He's not great at it, but he takes a lot of shots, and sometimes they're going to go in. So
he's going to get ownership.
Yeah, like 15%, dude. It's gross. I mean, like, I would like to be under 15%. Like, if you get shocked Josh Jackson, it's pretty easy to go under, but like, he's cheap enough that I'm not going to argue with you for playing him, and you're going to get him in the Opto some. So.
Into ownership? I mean, Jesus. I was hoping this would just be like a 6 to 8%er at most into double digits. That is. I just run away any single time a Detroit Piston is in the double digits on peons. No interest.
Right.
No interest.
Okay, then. All right. One last Galaxy brain on this thing, because as I was sort of working through this in my own head, I was saying, I think maybe I just forget this whole game and hope it blows out, because I think that, the chance is so high, whatever. It's still less likely that it blows out than it doesn't. All that stuff that I always say about blowouts. But this is one like, you can maybe dodge this. And like, I don't really want to play a lot of these dudes in that case. If that happens, who's the Detroit Taylor Horton-Tucker, Kyra Lewis, Bobby Portis?
Dude,
who's the guy that
they're playing like 14 guys.
There's 8 of them. Yeah.
I mean,
okay, who's the end of the bench 5? Who's the one that's in the regular rotation with the highest usage rate? I'm sorry I did grill you so hard on the Detroit Pistons, but
well, no,
it's what you do.
It's definitely Grant. It's definitely Grant.
No, I'm saying should it blow out if it's over? The Taylor Horton-Tucker, the game has ended, and now this guy gets the whole fourth quarter run, and you kill Jokic and Gordon and Porter and Josh Jackson and Jeremy Grant, and this guy puts up 28 in garbage time. Nick Claxton, like the guys that we've been sort of chasing a fair amount in games where it's like, play this guy with nobody else good from this game. Is there anybody? Or is it just too hard to tell because it could be Saban Lee, it could be Killian Hayes?
I don't know. No. I got the names for you. You're just not going to like them. Because Isaiah Stewart, I think Isaiah Stewart is getting played. Did you notice he's double-digit ownership on FanDuel? That dude is getting played like he is absolutely going to get the blowout run. And he's not guaranteed that. I can tell you that much right now.
Because he's a $3,700 power forward, and the Sims will like him because he's obviously very wide range of outcomes for a guy that does so much around the basket.
No, I get it. I totally get it. He has stock upside too. So I understand it. I'm just saying if you're playing him in the hopes of blowout run, you're probably going to be disappointed because it's going to be like Sekou Doumbouya. who gets blowout run.
That's an instructive thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Is I think Isaiah Stewart is now too valuable to be that dude.
No, it would be more like if Plumlee gets into foul trouble and the game is competitive, he can play, right? He can play 24 to 26 in that scenario type of thing, right? But if it's blowing out, I don't think so. Remember, Plumlee's back, and then Doumbouya played pretty well yesterday, and they might want to make him a thing. And then Tyler Cook is another guy that got a bunch of run yesterday in a blowout, and I mean, for fantasy, it's useless. But those are the type of guys that are getting blowout run. Frank Jackson, it's gross. It's gross. There's no THT that I love in Detroit.
Which is weird because you think they have so many sort of prospects, but yeah, they're all not great. But interesting talk. Yeah, Tyler Cook, that's another guy I'd never heard of until 2 months ago. It's just, man, Detroit's bad. But man, there are a lot of bad teams this season. Let's seg that to somebody. No, it's actually all pretty decent teams left. The Lakers think presently. Let's go through this game pretty quickly and try to. We got 3 left. LA and Toronto. Toronto is one of the 2 teams on the back end of a back-to-back. You mentioned no Lowry, no FDV. Malachi Flynn season again? What's going on here?
Dude, yesterday he blew up again. He did the thing again and ended up closing both halves for Toronto, which I thought was pretty meaningful because he essentially did the same thing a game before that when VanVleet got hurt. He ended up closing as well. The thing that you're scared about now, well, one, he's more expensive. So the day that you wanted to play him was yesterday when he didn't start, right? And he still had the chance for those minutes. It was really yesterday. Now he's 3,900 on DraftKings. Still pretty good tag. He's going to be owned because now people realize the upside that's there. And if he's going to be closing both halves consistently without VanVleet in there, yeah, he's probably going to get 30 plus. With that said, he had a good game. If he doesn't play well, what happens, right? Well, right now they don't have Patrick McCaw. They don't have Paul Watson. And obviously they don't have VanVleet and Lowry, right? So if he doesn't play well, I guess now the minutes floor on that is probably 23 to 25, something along those ranges. And they could still play Gary Trent more and just riding their starters more outside of Flynn. That is still a possibility. So that's why I think you have to be really careful with this price tag because yesterday I projected 23 and a half. You could argue it was low because he played 33 and ended up closing both halves. But you have to remember with Toronto, when their guys are playing well, that's when they'll get run, right? If they're not playing well, we've seen all sorts of horrible things with them. So that's really the scary thing on there. And that's why on FanDuel, where he's 5,100 point guard eligible, that's tough. That now you need him to play 30 plus. Essentially, he cannot fall below that.
Right.
So that one scares me a little bit. We saw Boucher yesterday play 20, didn't close. Really, and he started. So that was kind of bad there. He still kind of had a good game, but the fact that he can still play 20, Andrew, in a game where he starts, that's scary. So this should be another good game for Siakam. He's the last guy standing, right, as far as their pillars on offense. Yep. Didn't really see big rates yesterday, especially the assist rate just kind of vanished with Flynn playing so much and Bembry doing a decent bit of ball handling too. But you think that works again? I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah, Bembry led the team in assist percentage yesterday, which I thought was
crazy. That's crazy.
Worth saying on the show and forgetting instantly.
That's crazy.
It's weird. LA, we got Drummond's questionable. I thought he was going to be out for longer. He's back already?
They said it. So the latest thing on him was he was just going to miss a couple games. So he's Q, and he's already missed a couple games, right? So now the hope is that he'll be back for this one. And he has a stupid tag again on FanDuel that he didn't mean last time because he got hurt. But if he's in there, you're probably not going to see Marc Gasol. You're just going to see Montrezl Harrell off the bench. And that is the most noteworthy thing on the Lakers injury report. Everyone else is pretty much as expected.
Okay. Anyone you dig playing? I mean, the Drummond price tag is really nice, so he'll get played and should.
Yeah, still interested in Kuzma. Underpriced on DraftKings at under 7K. And I still have some level of interest on Dennis Schroeder as well. DraftKings, the price tag is a little better than FanDuel, but I still think he can get played on FanDuel at 7,600.
Okay. That's a buy. All right. Let's see. Milwaukee and Golden State. Really nice real-life game. National television game. Two really good players. I mean, more than two really good players, but two, all-timers. What do you got for me on this game? Pretty clean injury reports.
Clean injury reports. That is not good for Drew Holiday. His rates have been awesome lately, but now he's 8,800 on FanDuel, which I found that to be a bit restrictive. Yep. So to be honest, what else is there to be said about him, right? Like, he's going to rate us an awesome player anyway. It's a good spot for him. Don't have any problems with him. Middleton's okay on both sites. Outside of that, I don't have much interest in anyone else. Maybe DiVincenzo on FanDuel, 5,500 shooting guard. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think so too. Plays from Giannis. On the Golden State side, I mean, Steph rating out really well. Not the greatest defensive matchup, but whatever.
No.
Steph Curry.
Yeah, certainly not a good matchup at all, but Steph Curry. Steph Curry under 10K on DraftKings and under 10K on FanDuel too. So great price tags for a guy that has had monster rates this season and typically is efficient. So if that's the case tonight, he should meet or exceed this projection.
Agreed. I think that makes sense. You could take a stab on Oubre or Wiggins where the prices are all right, though sometimes they have good games, but I'm not particularly loving it. They're both, in that they're 10% overpriced. They're not like obscenely overpriced anymore kind of range, but they've had games here and there. Again, not a good matchup. And they are not teams, they're not guys that will hit a lot of shots. Milwaukee systematically does allow a fair amount of open threes. Clearly, they're not going to do that to Steph Curry, but they will because they're going to be giving attention to Steph Curry. That's going to leave Wiggins and Oubre and Draymond open for three. They're not going to take them because they're not good at them. I mean, Oubre will take them, but he's still not that good at them. Draymond just won't. So,
by the way, this doesn't strike me as a Wiseman spot at all. I'm sorry, man. I mean, listen.
What, the NBA?
There's not many spots that we've said that, but this one, just as an observation, doesn't strike me as one. In all seriousness,
okay.
I think this should be a Draymond center spot as much as you can kind of ride it and just play a little bit smaller, but this does not strike me as a Wiseman 28 minutes. If he does it,
noted,
incredible, but don't think so.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Not a great fantasy play. Noted on James Wiseman. Okay, last game. Memphis Grizzlies are on the front end of a back-to-back. They take on the Miami Heat. Memphis is going to be down Melton and Winslow, and Brandon Clark is questionable. How do you see that changing what happens for the Grizz?
Mostly like irrelevant. In terms of if Clark misses, you could see more Kyle Anderson for sure, 29, 30. We can start projecting that. But these guys are just going to play 10 no matter what. No matter what.
Yeah.
So it's what we've been saying all season. It's been happening all season, no matter who's been in or out. Tonight's going to be no different. I think the plays here, to me, are pretty obvious. They typically always are on Memphis. It's Joe Val, and it didn't strike me as an incredible Joe Val spot, but I think it's certainly doable.
Yeah.
He's going to be really low owned again. So those are the guys that play. Maybe Kyle Anderson without Brandon Clark, some level of interest. But he's not cheap anymore. I mean, he doesn't deserve to be cheap, but he's not. He's nearly 6K on FanDuel. So I think it's okay. I think it's an okay play.
Yep, I think that is fair. Yeah, Valanciunas I was thinking about too. It's like it's pretty expensive, but center's not like crazy deep necessarily. I mean, you've got Jokic and Embiid, obviously, but like pretty bad spots for both of them, right? Jokic is in a severe blowout risk game, and Embiid is overpriced for what his likely role is, which is why he's 2% owned, which is why I want to play him. But it's going to be a lot of drumming at that 5,200 tag. People will still play Rob Williams. I actually think that's kind of easy. That's like pretty dodgeable. I think if you have like a Rob Williams lineup, I think Valanciunas becomes a pretty nice pivot there. It is a hard, they have like Williams is a 6% optimal probability, Valanciunas 4%, but it's 13-2 in ownership. Valanciunas does have a tough match. Like Bam is a better one-on-one defender than he is a help defender, so like he can really bottle up a dude like that. He's pretty freaking strong. I mean, he's not Joe Val, and he's not like that big, but I don't think Bam's going to have like too big of an issue there. And like with a center, that is more with a guy like Joe Val, it is more of the one-on-one matchup. So I'm not super psyched about him, but I'm with you. Yeah, 2% own. It's hard not to be like, okay, I'm going to take some stabs on Joe Val.
Yeah, that's essentially what I was saying. Like the matchup isn't like wow. But the ownership, especially on slates with Jokic and Embiid, always ends up being that way, isn't it? Just super low on Joe Val.
Yeah, totally. Miami's a mess, kind of. Like, I mean, they just have so many
dudes.
Yeah. And so many dudes that are perfectly capable of being incredible fantasy players on their own. But there's just like most of these guys are big time scorers. And you can't all be big-time scorers on the same team.
Yeah, I guess outside of Bam, right? Bam's the guy that could sacrifice some of those points and just do everything else type of thing.
Yeah, which is dumb. It's like, okay, we're going to have Victor Oladipo, who's like been horribly inefficient his entire career except for one season. Like, we're going to have him take a lot of shots, and he's going to try to because he's trying to get paid too. Like, I don't blame him. That's the right idea, but it's going to be, Oladipo is not nearly as good of an offensive player as Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Goran Dragic are, so he's equally about as good of an offensive player as Tyler Hero, who has been outed as kind of a not as good offensive player this year. I was going to call him fraud, and then people were going to come after me, so I decided not to. Wow. I mean, listen, Hero was a nice story. He's got a cool snare. I like it. Shout out Davis. I appreciate that. You sold your top shot for $15,000. That's cool. I think that was a sharp move. I don't think a Tyler Hero top shot is going to be worth $15,000 in a little bit,
No, this is tough, man. It's definitely tough. Did you see he played 23 minutes last game with Dragic back and with all the dudes, dudes that we know. So minutes are coming down a little bit for Mr. Hero. Dragic was able to play 26, so and I think that's going to be his main role. It's like 26-ish moving forward. So I think none is gone, essentially. I don't see how you play this dude now with everyone in here.
Another inefficient volume shooter, like maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. And then it's just going to put a lot of pressure on rates. Last 5 games here for Jimmy, the usage is down to 23%. So it's scaling that we're essentially we are trying to get everything to work in Miami, but we're not going to be able to make it work perfectly, right? Because this is a new situation, a lot of dudes. So I think Jimmy is a little bit in danger of losing some of it, not all of it, but some of it. Yeah. He's going to lose. Depot is certainly going to lose some, without a doubt.
Right.
Although he has been able to put up, looks like he's been at like 27-ish, 26% assist rate usage.
Yeah, I think they're letting him do it. Like it's his. Yeah. Jimmy's going to sort of defer to him a little bit to see how he fits into the team, which does make sense, right? It's like, do we? Yeah. And that's it's like, let's find out if this guy fits with us. That's it's good process. Like I don't think it's dumb necessarily for the Heat to have taken a flyer on him, but most likely he makes their team worse. Obviously, he was the favorite to go there next year anyway, so like it makes sense to throw not much to try him out for a few games beforehand. Although it short term will make their team worse, most likely.
Well, and from a DFS perspective, just purely DFS, Then it's if you are gonna just say, okay, Oladipo's gonna be our main usage guy, not gonna be good for Jimmy, certainly not gonna be good for Bam. And their assist rates are gonna take a little bit of a hit because Depot's another guy that has like a 24 to 25% assist rate on top of all the dudes on this team that have the exact same assist rate. So it's tough from a DFS perspective right now in Miami. I don't like anyone really because Jimmy is priced very efficiently. He's 9K on both sides. Bam is 8,500 center eligible on FanDuel. So I don't have an issue with their medium projections. I'm saying it's definitely going to be tough for them to reach that ceiling, right? With all these dudes in here. I think it's going to be really tough.
No, I think so too. And I mean, we were playing, I was like touting Jimmy Butler at 10-6, like a month ago. And there's just too many guys. Like all of these dudes, Butler, Bam, Depot too, Hero, Dragic. Like I'm pretty sure at one point or another, every single one of those dudes has had a game where they were projecting over 30% usage for us now. Now the only one over 25 is Depot. And Hero and Dragic are down to like 21. It's tough times.
It's kind of bonkers, right?
Yeah. And there have been some price reductions, right? They're coming down, and we're going to get there close. I think soon. I think in a week, if they keep coming down another couple $100, then you start really firing on play at most one, but one. Playing exactly one of Butler, Bam, Oladipo, Hero, Dragic. Like if they were all $500 cheaper, I'd be doing that for sure.
And Depot has the rates where if he lands on an efficient night, he's really the one that, frankly, in my opinion, has the bigger, maybe standard deviation, you want to call it, on his projection.
Yep, agreed.
I think so. This is a dude that could certainly put up a big number, a crooked number, if he has that efficient night, because it's a 27.5% usage rate.
Yep, 7K is a nice price tag on FanDuel, 3% ownership. Yeah, he's showing at 8% optimal. That optimal is cheating a little bit because it doesn't know that his priors have changed so much, him like that. It not screws them up, but the Sims tend to it likes a lot of wide outcomes. There are some inputs for this, but if you're just okay, here's the game Wall plays and Depot doesn't, here's the game Depot plays and Wall doesn't, it doesn't quite know what to do with that sometimes. It makes it seem like a wider range of outcomes than it actually is, I guess is the proper way to put that. So the Sims may Depot maybe doesn't deserve quite that 8. It's not, it's not like he only should be 5, but it thinks his baseline range of outcomes, if that doesn't even, his actual range of outcomes is probably smaller now than he has shown in the data over the last little bit, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, those are the games. Do you have a peroration for us? What shall we talk about here? What are is there any chalk you're dodging? To me, it doesn't stand out as there's anything egregious yet. Both sites have pretty efficient pricing. FanDuel clearly did their weekly, change the prices day yesterday, clean house. And so they're a pretty nice, efficient pricing. Something's going to happen when we get news, but I'm not seeing any strong stands to take or not take yet.
I am kind of in the same boat. I would like Indiana. I wish we kind of had Indiana news just so we could talk about it
right
on the show, and then just see where the peons and Sims are on that situation. But there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on there, because if both Sabonis and Brogdon miss, right, that is a scenario that LeVert gets unlocked. Especially at his price tags, because now, Andrew, you need both guys to be out for the dude to be playable. If both guys are in my opinion, he's not playable on this slate at these price tags. So that situation is a really big one for the slate. But you're right. Right now, nothing stands to me as egregious. I think on DraftKings is the site where, say everything stays right where it is, which is highly unlikely, essentially impossible in the NBA. Flynn is the one guy that if he's going to get outsized ownership,
that's true.
I think maybe it's not that you can dodge it maybe fully, especially in MME, but And he's so cheap that maybe it's like you have to change your roster construction almost to make things fit. So that's tough. But if it's DeAndre Bembry and Malachi Flynn as the highest owned players on DraftKings, know what I mean? Like we can work around that. We can work around that.
I would consider an app. I'm looking on DraftKings and where Flynn, Bembry, and Siakam are the 3 highest known players. I'd make an almost 1 there. I'm comfortable with that. Like none of those dudes are really like, because Flynn and Bembry, it's like they might bite into each other's assists, and then when Siakam's got it going, he's an ISO dude. He's making his own offense. So I think that's enough of a way to get weird, like right there.
Dude, how quickly we forget, when Bembry just was doing absolutely nothing. Yeah. And now he's projecting for 20 DraftKings points. And it's like, no. He had a great game yesterday, and he's been priced, so we got to own him. That hasn't worked out a lot of the times this year.
Well, it's our fault, too. It's like everyone with the projections is like, okay, he played this many yesterday, so I guess we give him 2 more than we were going to the day. Like this is the best guess. But that's the thing, is it's a pretty fragile projection. So
absolutely is. Don't forget that about Bembry. Like his rates typically aren't very good. If he's playing a point guard role type of thing, and his assist rate is going to be bigger, like we have him at 16, essentially nearly 16 and a half, which is a seasonal average. I think that's nice for him, but he could still fall flat on his face for a cool 12 DraftKings points.
No doubt.
Really cool 12. Really cool 12.
Yeah, it'd be the sweet 12. Kind of like a Wiseman 12,
like a Wiseman 12.
That kind of deal.
Yikes.
Okay. Well, that'll do it for the show tonight. I really hope Joel Embiid scores 80 points tonight. And I hope everyone has a good time tonight. Tomorrow's the big slate, Wednesday. Gonna be
9 games.
Gonna be all the stuff. So we will be back here tomorrow. And we'll talk to you then. Good luck in all your contests this evening.